Good morning, viewers. It's Robert Atfield reporting for Port Carling Boats. It's November the 11th, 2011, and we're embarking this morning on a mini late fall tour of some boat shops in the Muskoka, Ontario area. We've just had a light snowfall. Unfortunately, it's melted, but Muskoka is starting to take on its Christmas beauty. And let's go in and see what Patricia's working on this morning. Patricia Ross, once again, and her traditional boat finishes shop in Bracebridge, Ontario.
Every so often I'll open the shop.
Patricia tells me last week she had 7 boats in the shop, so obviously the wooden boat business in Muskoka is still chugging along very well despite the tentative economy. The boat we're looking at here, viewers, is a approximately 1949 Shepherd, 22 foot in length, owned by a former mayor of Bracebridge. And Patricia has not started work on the boat yet, but I think you have some plans in mind for it, Patricia.
I do. I'm going to start by stripping the transom. It's got some water damage and stuff here. The varnish is starting to blister away. So we'll strip the transom. It's basically the hull and the deck are just in to be re-brightened. We're putting new marmoleum, which is the flooring in it.
Oh.
I have to replace one of the windshields. It's cracked. And some
Now,
of the hardware.
Sorry to interrupt. You can't replace that with glass, I guess, can you? You have to use a plexiglass?
No, that you can replace with glass. It's a tempered glass. And any glass company will do
Can
that.
do that.
Because it is a flat glass,
I see.
they can do that.
Okay. Now, how many coats of new varnish do you expect to put on this boat?
Minimum 2, hopefully 3. Depends on what kind of a day I'm having.
Well, I'm sure it'll look gorgeous when it's finished. Big, solid, seaworthy boat, as you can see, viewers. Thanks very much for the mini tour, Patricia.
No problem, anytime.
Our second stop this morning, viewers, is Mike Windsor's boat shop in Gravenhurst, just a few kilometers south of Bracebridge. I'm sure this building facade will be familiar with some of our wooden boat enthusiasts. We've featured Mike's work before, and you can see our first snowfall a little more clearly in this shot. Let's go in and see what Mike's doing. Viewers, I'm sure you'll recognize Mike Windsor from one of our previous videos. And Mike's got a very unusual boat here that he's spending what looks to be a significant amount of time on. Tell us about it, Mike.
This is, the name of the boat is the Delia. It was originally a tender for a much larger boat, like a large commuter yacht. I think the original boat was 85 feet long that this boat was a tender for.
Wow.
It's built by a builder called George Lawley. Most Americans who are would be familiar with the name. He was one of the premier builders, American builders. This boat is 1913. It's been on Muskoka. I actually first worked on this boat for the fellow who owns it now 25 years ago, and kind of refinished it about, I think, my second year in business. And over the years, it's kind of been nursed along, but it's finally got to the point where it needs a new bottom. So I'm just getting ready here to re-rib it. As you can see here, I'm chiseling out the old ribs. It'll make it easy to remove the fastenings. It's all riveted. The way this boat is built is just built incredibly well, which makes it extremely difficult to repair. It's not a matter of backing out screws, it's a matter of grinding out rivets. And even the transom binder, to take the transom binder off, rather than just taking the screws out, they were plates in here, in the transom binder. And it was all set in flush. The screws were drilled and screwed in with just enough head to hold it, and then the heads were filed off.
Wow.
So I had to locate every single one of the screws, drill the centers out, and take them out with easy outs. This was relatively easy to top, but the entire binder around the sides, they were actually, they're all put in flush. They don't sit on top of the planking, so it's very, very nicely built boat, but just a very challenging project as far as working on it.
Yes, lots of hours. How was it powered at this point, Mike?
It originally had a 4-cylinder Sterling, very small engine with a crank start. The crank originally probably came out through here. The owner still has the original engine. We're debating, he's having somebody looking at the engine. We're debating whether or not to put it back in. It's, there are only 2 of them that we've been able to locate of this particular engine. I believe it was called a Cub, the engine. For the last several years, it's been powered by a Universal Atomic 4, which is a very common engine. Thousands of those engines around, very reliable. So
Yes.
I guess it's a matter of, do you want to get in and turn the key and start, or do you want to be mucking around with the magneto and the points and everything else?
Yes, right. Well, we wish you all the best. It's a great project, and I'm sure it's going to be beautiful when it's completed. This would be what, about a 20-footer?
Yes.
Yeah. Elegant, narrow beam, but almost canoe-like in some ways. I'm sure
Very, very lightly built too.
Yes.
It is very much like a canoe.
Thanks very much, Mike. That's a most interesting project. Viewers, we're still in the north end of Gravenhurst here for this little visit, and we're going to take a look inside Paul Brackley from Brackley Boats. And I see Paul has a large cabin cruiser out the back of his shop, which I'll ask him about, and we'll give you a look at that as well. Viewers, for those of you that haven't seen some of our previous videos, this is Paul Brackley of Brackley Boats, and Paul's been working on this Chris craft that he'll just describe briefly.
I think it's a 55. It's 17 feet, and it was in for a varnish freshening, and we put a new lower transom in it and recocked the bottom and painted. It hadn't had any attention in years.
It didn't need a new bottom, Paul, just kind of a...
Well, I'd like to put a bottom on it, but the owner doesn't want to at this time, so we just patched it up. It's got some more years in it yet.
Yes.
But it should be a good serviceable boat now.
Top size, it certainly looks like it just came out of the factory or the showroom.
Well, we gave it 3 coats of varnish. It didn't need stripping or anything. The finish was actually in serviceable condition. It was dull and grainy.
Yes.
So we gave it another life, and doing a few things like we're putting some new rubber flooring in. We did some mechanical work, rewired the boat, and a new bilge pump, and a new horn, and there's always lots of little things to do.
Sure.
But it's almost done, and it's going to go back home soon before the snow flies.
Good. Where is home?
Lake Base.
Okay, so it's an Ontario boat. Well, that's great.
Yeah, and so go in and get winterized here before the ice is in.
And do you have a preferred kind of varnish that you use on your boats?
Well, right now I like to use Pettit flagship varnish a lot. I seem to be able to get it to flow on the sides with an additive I use to get it to flow. Varnishes change all the time. I get just to get one where I really like it, and then the next batch it's a different mixture or something, and it's too thick or it's too thin.
Okay, so it's hard to get the consistency.
The problem is getting it to flow properly.
Yes.
Without brush strokes. And if you get it too thin, then it flows too much. You don't want it. You get it too thick, it doesn't flow at all.
Right. So it's a juggling act by the sound of it.
It is a juggling act, and then the additives used to get it to flow better also slow down the cure. So you get more of a chance of attracting dust the longer it's got to sit.
Right. So there's a lot to consider actually before you start varnishing.
This whole finishing thing, it's very frustrating. It's kind of like golf, and you can do everything right one time and it comes out really dusty, and the next time you don't do anything and it comes out perfectly clean. So it's a real problem, and because it's got to sit, you've got 4 to 6 hours where it can still take dust. It's got to be perfectly still for 4 to 6 hours in a perfectly clean environment.
Yes.
The brush has got to be clean.
It's a real challenge.
It's a challenge. Yeah.
Well, it looks like you were really successful with this one.
This one came out good, yeah.
The finish looks absolutely flawless.
He'll be happy. And
mirror-like.
And there's a little bit of dust on it right now from the shop, but it cleans up nice.
Yeah.
And it'll be a good boat when it's done. He'll be happy.
Thanks, Paul.
No problem.
The boat we're looking at here, viewers, is a 28-foot hacker craft in Paul's shop. The head you see there belongs to Rob. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
Rob is reinstalling some of the innards of this boat that Paul has been working on the bottom with. And Paul tells me that sometimes with hackers there seems to be a bit of an issue with air circulation, that some of the compartments within the boats are sealed off so that there's not quite enough air circulation to prevent the development of mildew and mold. This is going to be beautiful when it's finished. This is a pretty substantial watercraft, all 28 feet of her. Big job. Mike in the photo here in the video, folks, is doing the last finishing touches on this Chris craft we looked at a few moments ago. And here's a beautiful bow end view of the Chris. And the flooring's going back in, and Mike's going to be sure that it's spotless before it goes back to the customer. Thanks, Mike. Viewers, as I mentioned before we came into Paul's shop, he has this quite amazing Chris Craft cabin cruiser. And Paul, your plans to do with it are?
Yeah, it's a 1936 35-foot aft cabin Chris Craft cruiser, and it just arrived, and we're going to paint the sides, paint the bottom. There's a few planks that we're aware of, maybe some transom work. We have to completely strip all the woodwork on the top as it's been blistered badly from the sun, and I think we're going to put 2 new engines in it, I think, as well.
Wow.
We're not sure yet. I haven't met the customer. We just sent the boat. So
that's a substantial amount of work.
it is a lot of work, and involves a little bit of work getting it in the shop, too. I have to put in a new bay door that's a little wider, and that's all coming together now, and we should have it in a few weeks.
Good.
And working on this.
And I guess you hope to have it done maybe by spring of 2012?
Yes, that's
Yes.
the plan for sure.
And then it'll go back to its home in Quebec.
That's the plan.
Good.
That's the plan, and we're also working on Rambler, and so it seems to be the year of the big boat for us.
All the best with all these big boats and their hassles, Paul. But that's a great project. And a lovely old watercraft.
It is. It's very pretty, and very. If you're going to have a cruiser, this is old is definitely more valuable than something from the 50s. So this is a really nice boat.
Thanks, Paul. Viewers, we're on the Muskoka River here, and we're inside the lower level of Peerless 2. Peerless 2 is a 60-footer steel boat, and was originally a gasoline tanker. And Captain Randy Potts, who operates another cruise boat on the Muskokas, has converted this boat over a period of time. He's widened the beam from 12 to 16 feet, a huge job in itself. And Captain Randy will keep working on this boat all winter long. He's doing some fine-tuning now, adding some wood to the interior, and windows are all installed. This is one huge project. And of course, marine regulations are very tight these days, and I'm sure Captain Potts has had to go through a lot of hoops to make this boat acceptable from a regulation point of view. We'll go topsides in just a moment. When she's finished, Peerless 2 is going to have a nice bar and a little cafeteria in the interior, and it's certainly going to be a great addition to the Muskoka Lakes. Here we are on the upper deck of Peerless 2. Captain Randy is working away on the wheelhouse here. He estimates that the's about a month of work remaining for electricians to wire the wheelhouse. The Peerless has been out for some sea trials, and Captain Potts is quite happy with the way she handles. Very quiet, apparently, and government officials are coming next week to do a stability test. And then next spring, I expect that the sea trials will begin. And Randy hopes to be in full operation by the summer of 2012. Exterior view of the wheelhouse here, and looking aft now towards the stern of the boat. Anybody who's anticipating a visit to Muskoka in the summer of 2012, I hope you'll contact Captain Randy and arrange for a ride on this lovely old vessel, which was apparently the oldest service vessel on the Muskoka Lakes. The government inspectors will determine on the stability tests just how many passengers can be taken aboard. I think Captain Randy hopes to take about 50 or so. We'll be back next year to admire the finished product. Here we are at Stan Hunter's wood shop, viewers, on Lake Muskoka, Milford Bay. Stan's just pulling out a Duke Playmate, and I understand that this Duke Playmate is going to appear in the boat show coming up. Got a bit of a tilt here.
Come back in, Stan.
Viewers, here's a stern view of one of Stan's Duke Playmates, and maybe he could just give us a bit of information about it or the show that's coming up.
Well, thanks, Bob, for asking. This is the third one of our fleet of 4 rental Duke Playmates named Heather, who was a dear friend who passed away of cancer but lived in Port Carling. And her father owned this boat, and he was a good friend of mine as well. Heather, George Scobie. Well, Heather, though she's no longer with us, before she went, I promised her I'd make this one of the rental fleet and name it after her. And so here it is, getting ready for not quite Santa Claus, but maybe one of Santa's helpers in the Santa Claus parade. And we'll have a nice banner across the front for the Port Carling, it's actually the Muskoka Lakes Museum. And Doug Smith will be sitting right in the middle with a buffalo skin coat from the RCMP. That's, I don't know how old that is.